Introverts, how did you meet your girlfriend? Story 1. She came over to me in a coffee shop while she was on vacation in my country to ask how to tip. We ended up having a 2-hour conversation and then an amazing 5-hour lunch 2 days later. She complained about her hostel and I offered my spare bedroom. She accepted. Nothing happened, although it seems fairly crystal clear in retrospect that we were falling for each other. Duh. I didn't want to be scummy and make her feel uncomfortable under my roof, so putting the moves on her was not something I seriously considered. 2 nights later, I had been gone most of the night on a work assignment, and I asked if she would please watch and walk my dog in my absence. I came home at 5 a.m. and was greeted by my suddenly very soft, very fluffy dog. She had somehow understood, "Will you please wash my dog?" and apparently didn't find that a strange request at all. The next evening, after we'd been talking over a bottle of wine for hours, it seemed she'd had enough of my apparent indecisiveness. She took the wine glass out of my hand, put it down, and leaned in for a kiss. That was 26 years ago. We've been married for 23. Story 2. On the Greyhound. During my time in the Army, I was stationed at Fort Eustis, Virginia. On my way home, Denver, Colorado at the time, for Christmas, I saw her sitting across from me and slightly behind me. Honestly, I didn't pay much attention to her at first, but my buddy seated next to her did. After getting shot down repeatedly for the next day and a half, he finally got off the bus. Shortly thereafter, she came over and sat next to me, and we started talking. After that, we got split up, put on different buses, and I kicked myself for not getting her number. Then the bus stopped in St. Louis, and there she was standing right in the entrance, almost like she was waiting for me. If my bus had arrived 15 minutes later, I'd never have seen her again. Then I found out the bus to Denver was delayed due to snow and wasn't going anywhere for at least 2 days. She hurried over to the ticket counter and had my ticket changed to Des Moines, Iowa, where she was going, so I wouldn't be trapped in St. Louis for 2 days. We spent the next 4 days getting to know each other, then I continued home. We had a long-distance relationship for about 6 months until I came home permanently, by which time she had moved to Denver and rented an apartment. We got married 3 years later and have been together 10 years total. Story 3. After 4 years of no dating following a crushing breakup, a mutual friend called to my attention that she was into me. I was oblivious. I didn't know her very well, but I was ready to try again. I wasn't even sure I was very attracted to her, but I figured it couldn't hurt to go out on a date with a nice girl. We hit it off. She's pretty shy, which is why she said she had never had the courage to try to talk to me. During the course of the first date, I'm slowly realizing she's amazing. Many years later, now we have 2 kids and there's just a lot of love in our lives. Story 4. At a garage sale. Well, technically my mom's garage sale. My father was a hoarder, but not of old newspapers or glass bottles or garbage. He hoarded consumer goods. Tools, CDs, home improvement stuff, camping gear, hunting and fishing stuff. The man had piles and piles of it stuffed in his home. Most of it pretty high quality, and all bought on clearance. The old man was a sucker for a deal, even if he didn't have a use for it. After he passed away, it fell to us to figure out what to do with a stock of overstocked goods large enough to open a store. So we sold it at rock-bottom prices in the front yard, as is tradition. It was a miserably hot summer's day. My mom requested that I come over and help because the house was on a well-trafficked street and the sheer volume of stuff meant that there would be a ton of people. She was right. There'd been a zillion people the day before, and though we sold a lot of stuff, there was much more yet to go. And this day I put up an ad on Craigslist, and it was even busier. It was a long day of haggling with strangers, but at the end of the day, we'd sold up to 90% of the load, and we were just getting ready to close up and celebrate our success with pizza. Then this car pulls up, and out hops this gorgeous girl. She starts poking around in the CDs first, finds a couple she loves, then waves me over and starts asking about some she's unfamiliar with. Think she thought that, since she'd found a few things she liked, the stuff she hadn't heard might be in the same vein, not knowing it was purchased indiscriminately from bargain bins all over town. I answer best I can. I hadn't heard most of them, but I was able to steer her to a couple she might enjoy. We kept chatting, and I sort of showed her around in between helping other people who kept showing up. There was definitely an instant attraction and some really great conversation. She had to get going, so I made her a sweetheart deal on the stuff and helped her to her car. She got in and drove away. And then I realized I hadn't gotten her number. My brother and my neighbor had a field day at my stupidity. But she told me where she worked, at the restaurant down the road. and she told me the days she was usually scheduled for. So I did something very unusual for me, and I pursued it. Friday afternoons, I'd drive over from my office and ask to sit in her section. The food was terrible, but she'd stop and chat as long as it wasn't busy, and I caught her admiring a few times. So, on my third visit, I told her I'd love to see more of her and ask for her number. 10 years, a marriage, and a child, and we're still head over heels for each other. I guess I owe my dad for the posthumous hookup. Story 5. I've known this girl for a decade now, which I have had a crush on for the longest time. Just recently, in a drunken state, she confessed she's been in love with me for years, and yet every time the topic has come up about relationships, I've matrix dodged my way out. But not anymore. As of tomorrow, I'm going to try and ask her out. I've never been so scared in all my life. Pray for me. Update 1. I decided to send her a link to the thread for a topic starter, then, like an awkward cliche, continued to ask her out over Messenger. Her reply was for me to wait until she has properly woken up and had cuddles from her cat. Now, we play the try not to have a panic attack while waiting game. I'll update you guys again in a few hours. Update 2. It's a complete role reversal. She's now worried about what if it doesn't work out. She wants to talk in person now. Hopefully we can hash it out today. Final update? We're all going to be left in suspense. Due to crappy luck, our talk won't be happening until the weekend. I might make a post about it on Reddit somewhere after it's ended with the final verdict, but until then, we wait. Another update. We finally managed to get a day off work and meet up. The talk mostly consisted of us going round in circles, so to cut a very long story short, she didn't want to say yes because of the fact that she's ultimately scared that nothing will change between us. She's scared that if the relationship doesn't work out, it will end up ruining our friendship and I'll just be like another one of her exes. However, she didn't say no either, so I might still have a chance. Thank you for all of the support. I've never felt so determined, and it's all because of you guys. Story 6. The thing with introverts is, it's difficult to keep conversation going. Until, that is, you find this one subject that they're most passionate about. It's not long ago I shared how I met my husband. He's the introvert. He kept coming into the bar I worked, and I kept asking him questions trying to get a conversation going, but I kept hitting a wall. It didn't stop me from trying, though. It confuses me to think back on because I was also very annoyed with him. But anyway, after asking about so many things, I finally, on day 4, asked him about books. And the boy never shut his mouth after. So, to all the introverts out there, asking questions is difficult, but you're all passionate about something, whatever it is. Lead the conversation towards that one subject that you feel confident talking about. Then all the rest will come so much more easily. I can't believe my husband didn't ask, "So, do you read any books? Who's your favorite author?" when he's so passionate about them. For 4 days, all we did was me, question, him, answer, me, question. Story 7. I met her at a gaming club. I was playing Dungeons & Dragons. She was hanging out with the MTG crowd. She caught my eye from afar, but being an introvert, I never went up to her. All my social energy was being spent on the D&D, and I had none left to leave my close friend group and greet someone new. If there's one hobby you can do while being solitary, it's writing. I got to talking with some of the people on the local forums, and one of them turned out to be her. She invited me to a write-in with a bunch of locals. I didn't really want to go out, but now this girl I liked was directly inviting me, so I couldn't say no. We became buddies on this website for the next couple of years and started hanging out outside of that. We spent many nights during her senior year of college hanging out at her apartment watching various shows and writing together. Then she graduated and moved away and we slowly lost contact. Fast forward 4 years. I'm still single and a semi-regular poster on r/foreveralone and resigned to living single for the rest of my life. She pops up on Facebook again. We'd been Facebook friends since before she moved away, but she rarely used the site. Now we're chatting, and soon the chatting moves to Skype. She's thinking about moving back into town and wants to know if I'd go around looking at apartments with her. She does the several-hour drive, and we look at a few places, hang out for a while, and then she goes home. A few weeks later, she tells me about this cool nearby theme park. She does the several-hour drive, we hang out for a while, and then she goes home. This goes on for a month or two, and I am just the densest idiot that ever deserved to be an evolutionary dead end, because I'm not realizing people don't just drive for hours to spend a little time with a friend. Finally, in the most adorable Skype message I've ever gotten, she asks me if the next time she comes down, it could, maybe, possibly, if I wanted it to, be a date. I told her I'm someone who enjoys happiness, so of course, yes. That was 2 years ago, and we're getting married in July. And we still laugh at how dense I was. Story 8. We met in a science fiction class at college, and we absolutely hated each other. She thought I was an idiot, and I thought she was a know-it-all. We argued, we squabbled, we one-upped. We are both super nerds, so it was a seemingly endless battle of esoteric knowledge about science fiction literature. At some point, we got to arguing about Atlas Shrugged. I made several trenchant remarks about its lack of literary value, and she aggressively defended it. One thing led to another, and back before I knew it, we were watching The Empire Strikes Back and dating. We're engaged now. She still thinks I'm an idiot, and I still think she's a know-it-all, but we don't hate each other anymore. Story 9. He was in the corner drinking a bottle of water. I noticed him immediately, and I noticed him noticing me for the better part of an hour. I finally just walked up to him after I figured he was too shy to approach me. We chatted for about 2 hours and then left. Later in school, we exchanged our AOL screen names, and after weeks of random chat sessions, he finally worked up the courage to ask me if I wanted to see a movie, Harry Potter. During the date, he didn't say anything, but I noticed him very fidgety, so I decided to hold his hand. After the movie, we were sitting in his car in silence, and he was fidgety again, so I grabbed his face and kissed his cheek. He turned completely red, but he was grinning from ear to ear. In person, he had trouble stringing together sentences, but online we could chat for hours. He had to express his love via email and cuddling without saying a word. We first met over 14 years ago, bought a house together, and getting married in October, going to Disney and Universal for our honeymoon / to celebrate Halloween. It's pretty much amazing. As we've gotten older, he's gotten much more vocal, but I still do most of the talking when socializing. We do a squeeze when holding hands to mean love you if we don't want to talk. Love him to pieces. Story 10. Almost 10 years ago exactly, a guy replied to a stupid comment I made several hours after I made it. I don't know how he found it since it was so old and never had any hits, but he did and he replied. After that, it moved to talking on Reddit a bunch, then moved to Facebook since the Messenger app is easier. Then texting all day, every day, gaming together, FaceTiming, trips to finally meet. Best friendship turned to a very unpredictable fling off and on for about 3 years, then it ended. After maybe 10 to 15 trips seeing each other, he disappeared. I mean, I know where he is, but he ghosted me. Was supposed to come visit me in my state and then just never showed up. Never called, texted, anything. That was like 9 months ago and still not a word. Just 3 years had never even happened. Honestly, I wish he never replied to my stupid comment in the first place. Story 11. We're both introverts, and as a result, it took a little while for us to actually become romantically involved. A little while being 7 years. She and I met when we were both 11, when we were put together to compete in a music competition as a duet. We're both cellists. I had a little 11-year-old crush on her straight away, and she the same thing for me. Neither of us ever told the other about our feelings for years. Instead, talking to our friends about it and then getting into other relationships and forgetting about each other for a while. Eventually, after I broke up with my girlfriend of 3 years, I asked my now significant other if she wanted to catch up and play music together. We saw each other for a few weeks in a row, and then after 7 years of on and off feelings for each other, we became a thing, and I am happier than I've ever been. Story 12. Always thought she was really pretty. Had noticed her when she first moved in, dorm. She was a year under me. She had a boyfriend all through her freshman year, and I'm not one to try and mess with that. After that year, my sophomore year, I moved out and went to live in an apartment with some friends. Me and my best friend at the school at the time were pretty introverted, and we were both worried we wouldn't meet people anymore since we both moved out to separate apartments. And one of the main perks of dorm living was being around hundreds of people your age within 100 feet at all times. So we made a pact to go and visit our old dorm at least once a week to try and meet new people and stay in contact with the underclassmen we had met thus far. She still lived in a dorm, but had moved across the street to a different dorm that was all girls. One time, early August, so beginning of the school year, we went to visit our old dorm around 7 p.m. We found some friends from last year there, including her. I didn't know her up until that point, just that she was extremely pretty and her name. Anyway, we decided to go to another girl's apartment to play board games. As a genius ploy, me and my friend had purchased a board game to give us something to do when we meet people. We're really cool, in case you couldn't tell. So we got to this house and meet some people we've never met. Our board game requires pairs of people, so we pair up. And I get paired with the girl who lives in the apartment. My friend gets paired up with the pretty girl. It was fine, though, because while I thought she was pretty, I didn't know if she was single. The night went on and it was really fun. We played for about 4 hours and really got some good conversation in with all these people that either we barely knew or didn't know at all. Afterwards, when my friend got me home, I made sure to add everyone I had met on Facebook, because for some reason that felt important to me. I don't know. Next week we go again during the day and I see her there again. Originally, there were probably 6 of us in the dorm lobby. One by one, everyone left until it was just her and me. We got to talking, and she seemed really cool. I liked her. But she said she had to go study or something after a while, and I assumed I freaked her out or whatever, so, that wasn't the best. Next week, she's there again. We talk for a bit in a group of people before the group collectively decides to go play volleyball at the local rec center across the street. She agrees to come. Before we leave, my friend from before tells me, "She's flirting with you." I didn't believe him and thought he was just pulling my leg. We go to play volleyball and she shows up. We play for at least 3 hours and she's there the whole time and seems genuinely terrified to play. It was bizarre. It's like she didn't want to be there, but stuck it out the whole time despite some people leaving halfway through, and it being perfectly reasonable for her to leave then. Afterwards, some people left to go eat while others went back to the dorm. I go back to the dorm. She comes with. We talk for a bit, and by a bit, I mean hours in a group. I get really hungry, but I'm afraid if I leave to go eat that she won't come with me and we'd never be able to talk like this again. My friend goes and gets me McDonald's and delivers it to me, then promptly leaves to talk to other people at a different part of the dorm. I mustered up the courage at 4 a.m., it took me a little while, to ask for her number. She gives it to me. I see her the next weekend. She kisses me. I die inside. The next week, I ask her to be my girlfriend. I plan to ask her to be my wife. I love her. Story 13. After months of spending less than 20 minutes sober, drove myself to a hospital for detox. Finally got up at the unit at about 1 a.m. where I proceeded to be given a bunch of drugs to help me sleep and reduce the chances of a seizure. Woke up the next day for breakfast in my scrubs, highly confused, and there she was. She had been in detox a full day before me, and this one allowed you to bring your own clothes and stuff, so she was dressed in her sweats. For some odd reason, she saw me, barely aware, unshowered for 2 to 3 months, and thought, he looks hot. Proceeded to spend the next 7 days in a locked unit, only talking, after which we both went to our separate treatments. Detox was combined detox and counseling that specialized in getting people into treatment directly from the hospital. Only contact we had from then on was about 20 minutes total of phone time, but we wrote each other letters every day. It's been almost 9 months now, and we had very dark parts of our relationship where we both relapsed, but now we are both over 3 months sober, focusing on our individual recovery first. I couldn't be happier. I finally found my best friend who loves me for who I am and has helped me grow in so many ways. I know nobody is really going to read this, but I want someone to see it, so thank you to whoever does. Story 14. I am definitely a hardcore introvert, at least if you believe the Myers-Briggs tests. But I'm not shy. I don't have anxiety or anything like that. Still, I always had a confidence issue and could never manage a cold open with a girl. Even with friends of friends that I liked, I found creative ways to mess things up and make them horrifically awkward. I met my wife on eHarmony, dated for 4 years, married for almost 5 now, and we just had our first kid. After talking online, we met at a bar and just hit it off. Funny thing is, she's way different than me. Much more extroverted. But I rubbed off on her a little, and she's rubbed off on me a little. For me, my problem was always that I couldn't tell if a girl was interested, and I could never tell when I was crossing the line from flirting to being creepy. And I was never looking for anything casual. I always wanted a relationship. By meeting a girl online, I knew she was interested and looking for the same thing as me. So I didn't get all in my own head about it, and I was free to just be myself. Did fine after that. Story 15. I was living in a duplex with some friends. One day, I decided to take one of my roommate's dogs for a walk, which I never did. Shortly after leaving the house, I was stopped by a girl who asked, "Don't I know you from somewhere?" I had never seen her before, but it was enough to start the small talk. She helped me walk the dog around the block, and we were basically inseparable from that point on. What my introvert self failed to notice at the time, she had been stalking me for weeks, trying to get me to notice her. Walking her own dog past my house, riding her bike next to my car, waiting for me to get home from work when I would unknowingly street park in front of her house where she would be doing yard work. She succeeded by catching me walking that dog, which, remember, I never did. did. It was fate, I guess. 6 months after meeting her, I moved out of the duplex and 5 houses down the street. Married for 16 years now. Story 16. I met my fiancé on the first day of college, completely by accident. I programmed my schedule into my phone, but hadn't accounted for daylight savings time. Therefore, I show up to my first class an hour earlier, unbeknownst to me. I had decided that I was going to make a real effort to put myself out there and be social, so I sit near the front of the lecture hall. I'd shown up with plenty of time before class, which was an hour earlier than my real class. Me and these 4 other people start talking about where we're from and stuff like that. They're all freshmen too, and I'm really stoked because it's before the first class even, and I found a group of friends to hang out with. One of these people is this gorgeous girl in the row ahead of me, and I fall in love with her the first time she turns around and asks my name. Right before class, we decide to all get lunch at one of the dining halls at a specified time. About 15 minutes into the class, it becomes really obvious that I'm not in the last class. I go to my schedule and online and realize that my entire schedule in my phone is an hour early. I'm too embarrassed to stand up and leave at this point, so I just stay. I almost didn't go to lunch when and where we agreed because I thought it would be embarrassing. But I thought there was a chance that the gorgeous girl would be there, and as luck would have it, I run into her in the lobby of the dining hall, and we eat lunch and talk for 3 hours. I never saw any of the 3 other people from the class, and I don't think I've spoken to them since. I added her on Facebook rather than ask her for her number because I'm a coward, and we get lunch together several more times the first 2 weeks of classes. Then she asked me if I'll go with her to this party that her roommate wants to go to. We both hate it. I kiss her after walking her back to her dorm, and we've been together ever since. Story 18. The Beyoncé concert. September 10th last year, St. Louis. Friend, now girlfriend of mine, needed a ride to go to Beyoncé's Formation tour since her best friend had to cancel on her. Since I had my car, she went to me for a ride. We went from Memphis to St. Louis listening to music the whole way, 4 to 5 hour drive. Did some talking, but only small conversations. We did have a conversation of past relationships. Mine was non-existent. I did, however, upon her request, describe what I found attractive in humans. It's also important to mention that she was single at the time. Eventually, we made it to the concert. Seriously packed concerts are not introvert-friendly. At some point of the concert, it was pretty obvious that Beyoncé was going to sing Single Ladies. Right before the song started, Beyoncé exclaims out loud, "Where are all the single ladies at?" And the crowd went really loud. Knowing that my friend is single, I looked at her to see if she was screaming, but she wasn't. Instead, she was looking at me, quickly grasped my right hand, and said, "I don't think I am anymore." And that was that.